Long ago, so like today we are learning the bosom tree. Long ago, in the city of Benares, there once lived a great king, and his name was King Brahmadatta. He was loved by all the people in Benares, for instead of taxing people or making war, King Brahmadatta loved to garden. So what was King Brahmadatta's liking? Gardening. And of all the plants and trees in the city, his favorite was the blossom tree. It was said that even when Brahmadatta was but a small village. Sorry, it was said that even when Benares was but a small village, before Brahmadatta, the king Brahmadatta had become the king of Benares. Before that, in an ancient times, it was a small village. At that time also, the blossom tree was already an ancient. The blossom tree was already an ancient plant. So people believe that the blossom tree's roots went so deep that they went to the realm of the demons. তাহলে কোথায় যেন পৌঁছে যায়, এটা ধরে নেওয়া হয় কি যে blossom tree এর যে স্টিমটা যে তার রুটস গুলো সেগুলো এতটাই ডিপ গেছে যেন একদম ডেমন্স শয়তানদের রাজ্যে চলে গেছে। King Brahmadatta loved the blossom tree because to him it was a poem of life. He spent a lot of time in its shade. অনেকদিন টাইম স্পেন্ড করেছে ওর শেডের তলায়। But for all the time the King Brahmadatta spent beneath the walls of the blossom tree, he never once noticed the little pusha grass that grew around the tree or the little chameleons that played around. No, he only had eyes for the blossom tree. শুধু চুপচাপ ও গাছটাই দেখত। But the spirit of the blossom tree knew all about the pusa grass and its spirit and the chameleon, for they had been friends for longer than time. Means here the pusa grass, pusa grass, pusa grass and the chameleons, they were the friend for they had friends for longer than time. মানে ওরা অনেক দিন ধরে বন্ধু ছিল। One day the king was seated in his great throne room বলতে রাজার যে রাজসভা সেই জায়গাটা যেখানে সিংহাসন থাকে, sipping tea when something fell into his tea. তার চায়ের উপর কিছু পড়লো। Something has fallen into my tea, he said. It was white. It floated, ভাসছিল। Then another bead fell, আরেকটা পড়লো। He looked up. The plaster was beginning to fall from the ceiling. Plaster of the palace was beginning to fall from the ceiling. Ceiling বলতে ছাদ থেকে, ছাদের যে plaster, he said. Suddenly there was a great rumble in the palace. Great চেঁচামেচি, চেঁচামেচি, আওয়াজ, শব্দ, চিৎকার চেঁচামেচি। The palace is going to collapse. The palace is going to collapse. What they thought? The palace is going to collapse. He cried. For making its way across the ceiling was an immense crack. The ফাটল ধরেছে। And great chunk of plaster were falling all across the great throne room. Plaster সবাইকে খুলতে শুরু করলো। And in the great wooden pillar which held up the entire palace, there was a deep crack. Where was the deep crack? wooden pillar, যেটা ধরে আছে গোটা প্যালেসটাকে, সেখানে কি দেখতে পেলো, তার একটা ডিপ ক্র্যাক দেখতে পেলো। বুঝতে পেরেছো? Carpenter, builders, he cried, quickly go out into the parks, into the gardens, find a tree to replace the pillar. Hurry, we must repair the palace. So the carpenters and the builders searched from peak to park to park, tree to tree, measuring, trying to find a tree great enough to replace the pillar. But it was not long before one of the head carpenters returned to the king and fell on his knees before him. Your Majesty, it pains me to report that there is only one tree great enough to replace the. এসে কি বললো? Your Majesty, রাজাকে কি বলা হয়? Your Majesty বলে এমন কোনো বড় গাছ দেখতে পেলাম যেটা রিপ্লেস করতে পারে, only except something. Report that there is only one tree, যেটা ছাড়া আর কিচ্ছু নেই। Well, what is it? What is it? Asked the king. It is the blossom tree. The king looked at the builder, the jewel of Benares, the most beautiful tree in all of India. No, no, there must be another. There is. Huh? জুয়েল বলতে সম্পদ, এখানে সম্পত্তি, ঠিক আছে? কেন ওটা সম্পদ ছিল। বিফোর দ্য সিটি ওয়াজ বিল্ড, বিফোর দ্যাট টাইম বেনারস ওয়াজ ভিলেজ, তখনও অ্যানসিয়েন্ট না, মানে পুরো শহরটা কেউ দেখেছে এরকম একটা ব্যাপার। তাহলে ইট ওয়াজ অ্যান অর্নামেন্ট অফ দ্য টাউন। বুঝতে পেরেছো? মনে মনে হলো তার অন্য কিছু কাটি। There is no other king. Poor King Brahmadatta, he did not know what to do. He could either save the blossom tree or let his palace collapse. মানে কি বলছে? হয় গাছটা কাটতে হবে, নাহলে ওর প্যালেসটাকে ভেঙে পড়তে দিতে হবে। Because the entire palace was depending upon that pillar, and now there is a crack on that particular pillar, and the plasters of the room was falling. So it was an emergency situation when the king had to decide whether he had to save his palace or the blossom tree, because there was no such big trunk in comparison to that particular blossom tree. It was too big a decision for the king, so he went that night out into the park in the blossom tree itself. Its mighty branches rose above him, and he could feel its immense spirit surging from the earth. Up its trunk, out its boughs, out its leaves, down into the earth, into the roots again. And he prayed to the spirit of the mighty tree for an answer. But the spirit of the blossom tree said nothing. The spirit of the blossom tree understood everything, but he didn't respond because he knew the king was in emergency. Now, এটাও একটা ব্যাপার, রাজাও একটা সমস্যায় আছে, আবার রাজা চায়ও না কাটতে, তাই ঘোর সংকটে পড়েও কি করেছে, বাধ্য হয়ে গাছের নিচে গিয়ে কান্নাকাটি করেছে, কোনো রেসপন্স করেনি, কিচ্ছু পারেনি, দেখছি। And so King Brahmadatta decided to choke it down. কেটে ফেলতে চাইল। কি হতে চাইলো? Decided to chop it down. As soon as the idea entered his mind, the breezes, billows blowing past his ears, hurrying. As soon as the idea entered his mind, the breezes blowing past his ears, heard it, and they whispered it to the bird, and the birds flew away in horror. Whispered in Whispered it to the leaves, and the leaves whispered to the sun. And the sun whispered to the entire universe. So all creation knew that in the morning the beautiful blossom tree was died. Means the creatures living there or admired the beauty of that blossom tree started to know that, learned that the blossom tree had been cut off. And deep in the park that night, the spirit of the other mighty trees, magnificent trees, joined her, and they said, "What will you do? You must leave your body tomorrow morning. What will you do? They are going to chop you down. তোমাকে তো মারতে চলেছে, কি করবে? কালকে নিজে নিজেই তোমার বডি ছেড়ে দিয়ে স্বেচ্ছা মৃত্যু দান করে দেয় বলছে।" ঠিক আছে? And the blossom tree spirit said, "I have lived in my body for thousands of years. I do not know how to live in another body. What will I do?" "Well," said others, "you should try this." "No, no, blossom tree, you must do this to save yourself." "No, no, no," said another, "do this." আর অন্যান্য গাছটা বলছে কি, তুমি নিজেকে অন্য স্পিডে নিয়ে চলে যাও, অন্যভাবে বাঁচাও নিজেকে, কারণ তো কালকে তোমাকে কেটে ফেলবে, তো মরে যাবে। But though the proud spirit of the other trees had something to say in heart, the blossom tree spirit knew that they could not help her. And so all alone in the darkness of that night, the blossom tree spirit wept because he was about to be chopped down the next day. Whatever the other spirits had said or had shown the sympathy towards the blossom tree was false, because they would have not come to help. আমাদের সাথে হয় অনেক থেকে বন্ধুদেরকে আমরা নিজের মনে করি, কিন্তু তারা আমাদের সাথে ফলস কান্না কাঁদতে আসে, বা বাড়ির লোক রেডি ফলস কান্না কাঁদে, এদিকে পেছন পেছন আমার নামই দোষ দেয় থাকে। যাই হোক, এটা কিছু করতেও পারে না, আমাদের ভালো কাজের কাজ করতেও পারে না। তাই ব্লসম ট্রি নিজে নিজেই কাঁদতো, কারণ জানে যে এরা যাই বলে নিতে কেন, এরা কিছুই আমার হয়ে করতে পারবে না। The night passed all alone. She waited when in the darkness an hour before dawn in the lawn she heard a tiny voice. "Blossom tree, who is it?" she said. "Blossom tree, it's me, the spirit of the Kusha grass." কে এসছে? Kusha grass এর spirit এসছে বন্ধু। "Oh, little Kusha grass, can you help me?" "Blossom tree, I have an idea." "What is your idea, little Kusha grass?" And the great spirit of the blossom tree leaned over and listened to the tiny voice of the Kusha grass. কি বলছো বলো? কে এটা? Blossom tree. Though it's a fantasy story, as we all know, it is personified. The trees and the other grasses cannot speak like this, whatever the way it has been shown. But one thing we should remember, that it is a fictional story, as well as it is a science fiction. It is a fantasy. Science fiction বলবো না, science fiction বলাটা বেশি হয়ে গেল, science fiction নয়, নর্মাল ফিকশন বানানো গল্প, বাট ইট হ্যাজ আ ফ্যান্টাসি। ঠিক আছে? ফেয়ারি টেল স্টোরি, মনে রাখবে। কি কোন স্টোরি এটা? Next morning, two and X-Men brothers made their way through the city. The blades of the X-Men swung past the ankles and they entered the park and walked up to the great trunk of blossom tree. And one of the brothers knelt down and felt the tree for a place to choke. And on the brothers knelt down and felt the trees for the place to chop. He said, brother, something is wrong here. Feel the trunk here, it is rotten. দেখতে কি হলো, কাট থেকে দেখলো কি গাছটা পচে গেছে। No brother, it is That is impossible. It was fine yesterday. No, 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 no. Feel here, feel here. Do you feel it? It is soft. The blossom tree has gone soft here. It was fine yesterday. I know it was fine yesterday, but look, it's rotten here. And over here too. I can feel it. It is soft. And way up here it is. And down here and all round here. Brother, blossom tree has gone rotten in the night. It is a miracle. So what had happened? The blossom tree had gone rotten within a night. Miracle means something unholy हो जाना अचानक से जो नहीं होना चाहिए था. It is miracle. It is miracle. It is a miracle. It means that it was not work for the pillar. Means it was the Kusha grass that has given some idea. What idea the Kusha grass had given that we will come to know just after that. But the fact was that if the X-Men couldn't cut the tree down, then it is not used. It will not be used for the pillar of the town of the palace. And a rotten wood cannot be taken for the making of the pillar, right? And so swiftly down the city the two X-Men ran. And they found King Brahmadatta with his face in his hands, and they said, King, the blossom tree has gone rotten in one night. We cannot chop it down. This caused the king to think, and swiftly his mind raced, trying to think of something to do, when suddenly an idea flew into his mind, and he said, Call the carpenters and the builders and send them out into the city to bring back 3 great trees, and we must bind them together with bands of brass and make one strong pillar. Not now, hurry. So what the king had decided now? Instead of only cutting one bosom tree, he would cut 3 trunks of a huge tree, of 3 huge trees, and this will be bound with a brass covering. Then it will be one big pillar, and then it will be used as the replacement of that particular pillar. But back in the park, and so out into the park, the builders and the carpenters ran. They felled 3 mighty trees, and they bound them together with the bands of brass, and they replaced the pillar of the palace. But back in the park, the spirit of the other trees stared at the blossom tree spirit and asked, How did you go rotten in one night? It is possible to go rotten in one night. Is it possible to go rotten in one night? And even if you do go rotten, you must leave your body anyway. Rotten ki kore hole ar rotten hole tomar kajke more jabe tumi. And the spirit of the blossom tree looked at the others so proud, so magnificent, and said, Last night of all you told me what to do, but you could not help me at all. कोई आके हेल्प नहीं किया, बहुत सारे आए, बहुत ज्ञान बताए, लेकिन कुछ बोला नहीं, कुछ हेल्प किया नहीं. वो सारे जो ट्री आए ना अभी आके बोल रहे हैं कि एक रात के अंदर अंदर रॉटन कैसे हो गए. तो अगर हो भी गए हो तो लेकिन तुमको तो मरना पड़ेगा अभी. ये रॉटन का मतलब है वो खराब हो जाना. ब्लॉसम ट्री नीचे से रॉटन हो गया, मतलब उसका जो स्टेम है वो वीक हो गया, उसमें वो किसी भी कारण हो सकता है, लेकिन हुआ नहीं है. वैसे रॉटन का मतलब पहुंचे जाओ, पच चुका था, समझे. लेकिन क्या हुआ ओरिजिनल में, क्या होता देखो. Little spirit of the Kusa grass spoke to me. The spirit of the Kusa grass called the little chameleon. So who are these friends at the beginning we have come to know? In the video we have seen the chameleon, the Kusa grass was his friend. So he called the chameleons, thousands of them, to climb up on my back. And chameleon can change their colors. Their little bodies were soft, so when the X-Men touched me, they thought I was rotten, but I am not rotten. I am as strong as ever. The spirit of the tree was amazed, and then the bosom tree spirit spoke one last time. He बोला था उसको spirit of the bosom tree. Henceforward, then we must remember not to choose our friends and judge them by their magnificence or their will or their fame. বললো কি আমাদের বন্ধু কেমন করে দেখলে হবে, তাদের বিশাল বড় খুব ভালো ব্যক্তি, তাদের ভ্যালিডের মেলা ফেম, তারা অনেক বড়, এসব দেখে বন্ধুত্ব করলে হবে না। বন্ধুত্ব করতে হবে কি, বাট ইনস্টেড উই মাস্ট চুজ আওয়ার ফ্রেন্ডস ফর দেয়ার faithfulness and depth of their love. You must have faithful friends and they must have depth in loving. Then only you can choose them as your friend, otherwise not. নাহলে এরকম ব্লসম ট্রিকে জ্ঞান দেওয়ার লোক অনেক ছিল, but nobody had come out to help him out. But his true friends, the small little Kusagrass and the small little chameleons, had come to help him and save his life. Clear?